section 5.2, multiplication and division of integers. So we're going to start with integer multiplication, and we're going to look at the chip model. When you're doing multiplication, you're going to write out in words what is written there. You need to keep it in the same order. So looking at 2 times negative 4, what we're going to do is this will become 2 groups of negative 4. And then you're going to draw that, 2 groups of negative 4. So remember, greens were positive and reds were negative. So I'm going to draw 2 groups of negative 4. So negative was red. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your first group. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you show your 2 groups of negative 4, and then you put them all together, and you end up with a total of 8 red, which stands for negative 8. Now, when your problem starts with a negative, we're going to put the word remove in front. Remove 2 groups of negative 4. When we do this, we have to first have the field equivalent to 0, and the way we do that is we're going to end up with 2 groups of 4 of green, and 2 groups of 4 of red. Okay, and the reason we're doing this right now is because now this is equivalent to 0 still. So we're starting with nothing, but we want to remove 2 groups of negative 4. Okay, so when I remove them, I'll remove this one, and I'm left with 8 green, which stands for positive 8. Same thing happens with the chip model, the charge field model. A field has a 0 charge if it is the same number of positives and negatives. That's this idea that we were talking about just a minute ago. So still going to write it out. This will be 4 groups of negative 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. And this would be equivalent to negative 12. This one starts with a negative, so I'm going to remove 4 groups of 3. So that means I have to have the positive and negatives. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I can remove my 4 groups of 3. My 4 groups of positive 3. And that would leave me with negative 12. On the number line model, you don't have to show the hiker when multiplying, but you're still going to write out in words. So 3 times 2 would be 3 groups of 2. On your number line, you still are going to start from 0. You can show 3 groups of 2. Make sure you label them. Okay, so label above the arrows. And our answer on this one is 6. Similar steps for 3 times negative 2. That will be 3 groups of negative 2. Make sure to draw all your arrows in and put -2's above it. Okay, now here's where it changes a little bit. I've got -3 times 2. So instead of saying remove, I'm going to say opposite 3 groups of 2. You're going to do this part first. So you start with your 3 groups of 2. Show your arrows with the labels on the top. And then you take the opposite, so it's additive inverse, is -6, so my answer is -6. Same idea here. You do opposite of 3 groups of -2. Start with 3 groups of -2. And then do your opposite. Okay, next, the rules for multiplication. If 2 numbers being multiplied have the same sign, we're going to multiply the absolute values of the 2 numbers together, and the answer will be positive. So 4 times 5 would be 20, same sign, so positive. -6 times -2, same sign, so we do 6 times 2 is 12. The answer is positive. The next one, if 2 numbers being multiplied have different signs, we'll multiply, and then the answer will be negative. So here, 5 times -3, you do 5 times 3 is 15. Opposite sign, so negative. Here, -7 times 4, you do 7 times 4 is 28. Opposite sign, so it's negative. All right, then we've got our properties, which should look familiar. Closure property, if you multiply 2 integers, you get an integer back. Commutative, where you can switch the order. Associative, where you can switch parentheses. Identity is where we can multiply by 1. The zero properties, where when you multiply by 0, you get 0. Distributive property, we've talked about. You can just multiply through. The only one that's different is number 8. If you multiply by -1, it changes the sign of your number. For integer definition, it really just builds off of multiplication. Our definition for division was A divided by B equals C. Meant, and we could rewrite it as A equals BC. So if I say this is C here, this would be the same as 12 equals -4 times C, and then you can use your multiplication rules and say what times 4 gives you 12, and you say 3. But we have to have a positive answer, so it has to be -3. And this is where they would eventually come up with that the rules, if you divide same signs, then the answer is positive. If you divide different signs, then the answer is negative. Following that rule here, AB, move that to the other side, B times C. These could cancel. On this one, order of operations, remember PEMDAS. I want to change actually this problem to a negative. So the first thing we would do would be the divide. Remember, it's left to right. So you have a multiply and divide in this problem, but you do it left to right. So it would be 16 divided by -4. Then your multiply. -4 times 2 is -8. -8 and +8 cancel each other, so you get 2. Why I put the next 2 is because you need to be careful when putting this in your calculator. If you forget the parentheses, you will get a different answer. So this first one with the parentheses means -3 times -3 times -3. And so when you do that, you end up with this is 9, this is 9, so we get 81. But over here, this is saying only the 3 is being raised to the power. So the negative stays there. We have 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So negative stays out front, 81. That concludes the notes for 5.2. I encourage you to pause it and try this one on your own. Try the worksheet on your own. Okay, on the worksheet, use the charge field model to compute. Write the problem out in words also. So 3 times 4 will be 3 groups of -4. There's 1 group, 2 groups, 4 groups. This will give me a -12. This one, we're going to remove 5 groups of -2. So when we remove, that's when we have the pairs. All right, so we have 5 pairs of 2. Now we're going to remove 5 groups of -2. So we're going to remove that one, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that leaves me with +10. Okay, the number line model, again, we're going to write out in words. This will be 4 groups of -2. 0, 2, 4, 6. Show your arrows with -2s above them. And then your answer is -8. This one we're going to do opposite of 3 groups 5, -5. So remember, do 3 groups of -5 first. So you could just mark that out, -5, then 10, -15, that's fine. Put in your arrows, label your arrows. And then you want the opposite, so it'll end up being 15. The bottom half is just the same worksheet again. It's just a half sheet on this worksheet. This concludes all of 5.2. If you have any questions on the homework, please feel free to use the Ask My Instructor button.